Welcome to the ASSISTments New User Webinar Part 2, a deep dive on data for Open Up Resources math teachers. My name is Dawn Peterson. I'm the Director of Content and Partnerships at ASSISTments, and I'll introduce myself a little bit more in just a few minutes. Some webinar etiquette for tonight. Hopefully everyone is very familiar with Zoom, but please leave your microphone off as we are recording this webinar for the rest of the Open Up community to view. You can have your video on or off, whatever you're comfortable with, and please use the chat throughout the presentation tonight if you have any questions, any wonderings, or need to see something demonstrated again on my screen. Just a note that whoever registered for this session will receive a follow-up email with a copy of the slide deck. So any of the links that I referenced during the presentation, you'll have access to, and you'll also get a copy of the recording to share with colleagues or review at your leisure. The goal of tonight is that participants will learn how to maximize the ASSISTments data to support student learning with Open Up resources. The key topics we'll be covering is to start an introduction to ASSISTments, an overview of what we are, and just a quick recap of what we talked about in part 1 of this 2-part series. We'll move on to analyzing ASSISTments data. I'll show you how to access the data report and also give you some opportunity to play around with the data and see what's available. Then we'll talk about some situations of how you can use Open Up Resources data to inform your instruction and discuss the data with students. And we'll finish up with some wrap up and next steps. My name is Dawn Peterson again, and I'm the Director of Content and Partnerships at ASSISTments. In my former work, I was an 8th grade math teacher. I taught 8th grade math in Massachusetts for about 14 years, and I used ASSISTments for 10 years with my students. It was part of my daily routine. I used it. I loved it. I used the data and shared it with students all the time, and I'm so happy to be sharing with you today. And with me is Carrie Moy. So I'm going to turn it over to Carrie to introduce herself and take over the next few slides.
Hello, everyone. Like Dawn said, my name is Carrie Moy. I'm the Program Associate here at ASSISTments, and my background is very similar to Dawn's. I was in the classroom for 12 years teaching middle school math, and I found ASSISTments and just fell in love with the platform and the data that I got from it to really use as like actionable steps that I could take in my lesson the very next day. And so I'm super excited to sort of share more about ASSISTments with you today. So we're going to go through the 4 steps, but before we do that, I really want to talk about what is ASSISTments. And so it's an evidence-based, forever free online math platform, and it integrates with both Google Classroom and Canvas. It makes for teachers life a lot easier because you can assign your content online from the curriculum. We have all of the Open Up Mathematics curriculum in our library of content that you can pull from and use immediately with your students, and all the problems provide students with immediate feedback and multiple attempts so that they can really foster like growth mindset when it comes to math. And so why ASSISTments? It's easy to give students regular and timely feedback, and students getting that feedback, that corrective feedback, really increases their autonomy and their engagement in class. The more ownership we give students of their learning, the more engaged they are in class. For us as teachers, you get daily formative data very quickly that you can use to target instruction and identify students who need the most intervention just in time, or identifying students that are ready for that next challenge. If you don't believe me, ASSISTments is actually proven by research. It's a research-proven tool and is one of 3 middle school math interventions with strong evidence and a Tier 1 rating by Evidence for ESSA. We also were a part of a randomized control study that showed that 75% more learning in classrooms that use ASSISTments to classrooms that did not. I think that's really important as we think about narrowing the achievement gap and thinking about this next year in addressing a lot of the unfinished learning from the previous 2 years. And so ASSISTments, Dawn and I are one of 20,000 teachers who used ASSISTments, and really it just saves you a lot of time because you don't have to scour the internet for these high quality practice problems. You get data immediately when it comes to students working through, And it really just helps you meet the needs of your students. All right, Dawn, I'm going to pass it back to you.
All right, thanks, Carrie. So in part one of the new user webinar, we talked about the typical teacher routine, which is, this may look familiar to you pre-using ASSISTments, that the teacher always starts by assigning some independent practice to their students. Step 2 is the student completes the assignment, fingers crossed that they get this done. Step 3, the teacher takes their valuable time to do the grading and wearing out that red pen that you have. And step 4 is the most exciting part, or was for me, that the data that you get after you grade informs your instruction. So when we talk about the ASSISTments typical teacher routine, step 1 is still that you're going to assign the content to students, but you're assigning from our ASSISTments content library. And in just a minute, we're going to review the Open Up Resources middle and high school content that we have available. Step 2, which we also talked about in part 1 of this webinar series, the student gets immediate feedback as they complete the assignment. Step 3, instead of taking your time scoring and grading, the teacher uses time to analyze the data report instead of grading. We're going to focus some of our time today on step 3 and then step 4. The teacher shares data with the students and uses it to take action. So let's just review really quickly just to get everyone in the same place, step 1 and 2. So step 1 is the teacher assigns. So in ASSISTments, we do have Open Up Resources, both middle and high school content. All of the student-facing practice, including assessments, are available to assign to students through Google Classroom or Canvas. Students are going to get immediate feedback as they work. In addition, they get multiple attempts if they don't get it right the first time. Like Carrie said, encouraging growth mindset for students that if they don't get it right at the first try, they can still persevere and they get it right eventually. The teacher is going to get a class and student level data report, which we'll talk about today, for every assignment that they give. We have, again, the Open Up Resources 6 through 8 curriculum. We have recently added, just this summer, the Open Up High School AGA curriculum, Algebra 1, Geometry, and Algebra 2. And just within the last couple of weeks, we are going to be adding, well, we added the first 4 units of Open Up High School Integrated, Math 1, 2, and 3, and we will add more units on a rolling basis throughout the school year as it is built. So we are excited to be offering the complete suite of Open Up content. For Open Up 6 through 8, we have all the student-facing tasks, including the warm-ups. We have the practice problem sets and the cool downs. Like I said, we also have the unit level assessments, pre-assessments, mid-assessments, end-of-unit assessments whenever available. And then for high school, for each lesson, again, when it's available, we have the jump starts, student tasks, exit tickets, retrievals, practice problems, and unit assessments. Just to note that not every lesson does have a jump start. So whenever it's ready, we're going to have it. And I'm going to go live right here just to kind of walk you through where that is and remind you the different considerations that you can have when assigning. So once you're signed into your ASSISTments account, if we scroll down, we're going to see these Open Up Resources folders. So you're going to navigate through these folders, same kind of hierarchy as you're going to see if you visit the Open Up Resources website. And once you get to the lesson level, you'll see multiple tabs up here at the top. So you can choose, let's see, I'll go to retrieval here. You can choose to assign all the problems in this problem set, or you can uncheck select all and just assign 1 or 2, whatever you'd like to assign to your students. When you're ready to assign, you'll see some assign time options. Just to review these real quick, you can change this name of the assignment. You'll choose your LMS here. The very first time you use ASSISTments, you'll want to make sure to import the classes that already exist in your LMS. You can assign in test mode or practice mode. Test mode is going to give you more of a summative experience. Students aren't going to get multiple attempts. They're not going to get immediate feedback, but you might want to use test mode if you're giving your end of unit assessment or maybe an exit ticket. You can choose the problem order. That's up to you. And then you can set a release or due date. That is also optional. The other way that you can assign is by searching by standard. So if you're looking for an additional set of problems for students to practice aligned to a certain skill, you can type in either a description or you can type in the code, and you're going to get a list of all of the problems in the assessments library across curriculum aligned to that skill. And then you can even filter by open up resources. So you're only seeing the open up problems aligned to that skill. You can then curate your own problem set by clicking the boxes to the right of the problem. And you can assign right now, like I showed you, or you can save to my problem sets. So saving to my problem sets, you're going to choose a title, create and save, and that's going to live over here in my problem set so you can assign at a later date. All right, so just to recap that, and then we're going to promise you, we're going to get onto some new content, but want to make sure everyone's feeling comfortable with the first couple steps. So you can choose to search by curriculum just by opening up those open up resources folders, or you can search by standard and then filter by open up resources to find curriculum aligned problems aligned to a skill. And what I would like to do now is just invite you, if you have already used assessments in your classroom, how have you tried to use it? Have you tried the warm-ups or jump starts, in-class collaborative work, student tasks, cool downs or exit tickets, or homework or practice problems? So I'll give you about 30 seconds just to think about that and share in the chat. We'd love to hear how people are using it, especially after they finish up our new user part 1. All right, so one person hasn't started yet, but they're just learning, and we'd love to share with you. Carrie, would you mind sharing? What would be a recommended entry point based on the fact that you used Open Up in your classroom?
Yeah, I actually started with using either the practice problems or as a homework assignment. And so assigning that for students to use and then getting that data from students completing it as homework. I also think a really good entry is to using it as your cool downs. And so assigning the cool down via assessments at the end of class to get that quick formative data on whether or not students have grasped the concept from the day.
Great, thanks, Carrie. And it looks like we've got a couple of people who did not attend part or haven't started using it yet. So if you do need to watch part 1 to learn more about how to assign, what the student experience looks like, Carrie shared that recording in the chat for you to view at a later time. I think the point here is that you do not have to start using all of these different pieces of curriculum in your classroom. Think about what your entry point is going to be after we finish up today's webinar. All right, so step 2, again, I'm just going to recap this from last time. And if you do need more information about the student experience, please post some questions, or probably your questions will be answered if you watch the part 1 recording. So just to recap, so the student is going to access their assessments assignment just by going right into their LMS, Google Classroom, or Canvas. They're going to be presented one question at a time. They will be able to see they'll get immediate feedback as they complete their work, and they'll get to track their progress as they go. The feedback that the students get is going to be corrective feedback. So they're going to be told their answer is correct, their answer is wrong, and they can try again. Just a note that the progress bar is going to decrease by 33% for each incorrect try. But one thing that we recommend is not using the score from assessments as a grade, simply as an indicator to show how many attempts it took the student before arriving at the correct answer. We know that some students are challenged by math, so some students may need to use our show answer button. The show answer button will tell the students the answer, which will allow them to move on if they get stuck. I will assure you that on the report, you will be able to see who had to press show answer, so you can tell if they genuinely were stuck or whether they may be abusing the power of this button. It is not something that can be disabled, though. When the student finishes their assignment, they will see a student assignment report. On this report, they'll be able to review the problems by hovering over this ID on the left. They'll see their score for the assignment. Again, not intended to be used as a grade, simply as an indicator of how they did on the assignment. They can review their work, review their answers, and this is where the student is going to see if the teacher left any feedback on their open response work. All right, so since we have a couple people in the group that have not started using, I'd love to see if there's any questions just about the assigning process or the student experience before we start diving into the data. So I'll give about just 20 seconds or so just to allow people to ask questions if you have them, and then we'll get started on the data. All right, looks like we're good. And please don't hesitate if, again, if you have any questions or want to see anything demoed again, I'm happy to pause and do that for you today. All right, so let's dive into step 3. So after the teacher assigns and after the student completes, now we want to take a look at how we're going to analyze data instead of doing the grading. So we're saving ourselves a bucket load of time here. So we're going to frame this situation with Catherine, who is an 8th grade math teacher who uses Open Up resources for her curriculum. She's using ASSISTments for the first time, like all of you are going to do after you get off today. So let's consider what she needs to know in order to analyze ASSISTments data. Catherine needs a quick refresher on how to access the ASSISTments data report. So I'm going to go live here and show you the 2 ways to access the data report within ASSISTments. The first is right through your LMS. So if you are a Google Classroom teacher, you're going to log right into your LMS with your existing credentials. You'll go to the classwork tab and you'll find the assignment that you'd like to view data for. Within that assignment, you're going to see an ASSISTments link. And when you click on that link, the data report will open up. Let me just show that in Canvas in case anyone's using Canvas out there or anyone watching the recording. So in Canvas, it's going to be the same thing. So you're going to log in with your existing Canvas credentials. You're going to click on the assignment. And within, the link looks a little bit different than it does in Google, but you'll click the ASSISTments link. In Canvas, you will be asked to authorize each time you view data, and you'll be brought into the report. The other way that you're going to access data is right through your ASSISTments account. So once you're logged in, you're going to click on My Assignments in the bar on the left. You'll see a list of every assignment that you have assigned, and then you can filter by class. You can filter by upcoming, released, or past due status, and then also filter by release or due date. Once you find the assignment in your account, first you can see an overview of how many students completed it, how many students were assigned, number of problems you assigned, the release date and due date if you set those, and also any standards that were present in that practice set. When you click on View Report, bingo, bango, there we go, there's your report. So back over here. So 2 ways to get data. One is through your LMS. One is right through your report. Right through your ASSISTments account. And just to note that if you do have co-teachers already identified in your Google Classroom or Canvas account, those co-teachers will also be able to access the same ASSISTments data that you have in your ASSISTments account. All right, so now Catherine knows how to access her data reports. Now she needs to understand how to analyze the data to understand which students need more support and with what concepts. So let's dive in. So I'm going to go back live because I think it's much more interesting showing a live report than it does showing the slide deck, but we'll do a recap on the slide deck and then give you a chance to kind of play around with the reports. So on the ASSISTments data report, we're starting with the problem view. Notice I have a problem view and a standards view. So we'll start with problems. Up at the top, we have our student progress cards. So this is going to show you at a glance how many students have not started the assignment, how many students are in progress, how many have completed the assignment, and then how many were assigned total. When you click on these progress cards, you'll get a detailed list of the students in the class who, again, have not started, are in progress, and when they last worked on the assignment, when the student completed the assignment, and then over here, just a comprehensive list of when they were assigned. As I move down, we get to see the performance summary. So the performance summary at a glance is going to give you some bar graphs to show for each one of the problems that were assigned, the number of students who got it right on the first attempt. We have 10 here. The number of students who got it correct eventually after 2, 3, 4 tries, they didn't need any support. And then how many students got it incorrect, which indicates that they had to press show answer to get the answer to move on. So this is going to give teachers at a glance an indication of which problems they may need to review as a class and which problems students seem to really understand. You can also filter a bit. So if you really want to just highlight the incorrect problems or the problems that were correct on the first attempt, you can do that right down here. All right, as I move down, here's where the meat and potatoes of this report is. So this is the detailed report. So on the detailed report, first and foremost, we get to see the average score for the entire class. Each one of these columns represents one of the questions that you assigned, along with the problem average for that one question. Down here, we have common wrong answers, which were one of my favorite parts of the ASSISTments assignment report. So the common wrong answer is going to tell you if 3 or more students gave the same incorrect response, leading to common misconceptions and can also lead to great discussions about where students went wrong. So 9 was the common wrong answer, and this percentage tells you the percent of the incorrect answers that were 9. All right, moving down, I also get to see the total amount of time students spent. And then this column here is total number of hints. For some of the curriculum that we have in ASSISTments, middle school open up resources being one of them, we do have some hints and student supports built, which I'll show you in just a minute how you can turn those on if you're interested in using those. All right, moving down, each one of these columns here rows represents a different student. I'm going to go ahead and unhide the names just so you can see each one of these is a student. And these are all of our internal staff members. So if you're sharing data, we definitely encourage you to keep it anonymized. But each one of the rows represents a different student, their average score in the assignment. Each one of these score chips tells you how the student performed, how many attempts it took them to arrive at the correct answer. Green, again, indicating they got it correct on the first try. Orange, indicating they got it right on the second, third, or fourth try. And then the red indicating that they got it incorrect, they had to press show answer. If you click on these, it also gives you a little bit of information on that student's attempts. So we can see that this student got it right the first time. Here were the correct answers that were accepted, and here's what the student gave for their first attempt. If I click on this next one, again, you can see how they scored, correct answers, their first attempt, which was wrong in this case, since this is orange, and their second attempt, which is correct. Now, I am not suggesting that for every single one you go around clicking on all these, because that would be very cumbersome, but there's definitely a time when you're going to want that level of detail for students. If you're looking at these symbols next to the what are we calling these here? The score chips. There's X's, some of them you might see triangles. If you're looking for a scoring guide, that's right up here. So the X means one incorrect attempt. The triangle actually means the student received one hint. So again, I'll show you just how to turn on hints. So if you do want students to receive hints or explanations, you can do that. All right. Let me just look at my list here, make sure I'm hitting everything. One additional piece of information, along with clicking on the chip here, is if you want to look at an extra layer of detail for a student and see everything that they've done, we have something called the Student Details Report. When I click on the student's name, and this is a student I might want to look a little bit deeper into since they scored a 30, when I click on that student, I get to see the Student Details Report. This is literally a play-by-play of what this student did. It's going to tell me for each problem how long it took them before they gave their first response, whether it was right or wrong, how many additional minutes it took before their second response. And it really allows you to understand the progression of the assignment in the student's point of view. So you can kind of diagnose if a student honestly struggled, whether they were fooling around, whether they gave an honest amount of time or whether they rushed. So again, that's something that you may not need every time, but it's there and available when you need it. And you can also scroll through students right up here at the top. One other thing I want to talk about, and then we'll take a break and let you digest a little bit about this and play around with the report, is open response questions. Open Up Resource has a lot of open-ended questions where students are asked to show their work or explain their answer or even create a diagram or a picture. So for open response questions, you're going to see this assess button. When you click on assess, that's going to open up the the essay scoring window. So you'll be able to see all the students in the class and the responses that they gave. You'll also be able to score on a 4-point scale, which is completely optional. You may just want to preview students' work, share it on your smartboard, have a discussion about maybe different types of answers. But if you do want to score them, you have that option. And you can also leave some feedback for the students to view. One other kind of cool tool is the custom sort. So I know in my classroom, I like to feature kind of an array of different thinking. So if you want to highlight some of the student responses and feature those at the top, so you can present these, take a screenshot, whatever you might want to do, we can number those and then custom sort and even hide some columns here so that students will be able to see just that selection of work. And you can highlight it and have a discussion around different responses. The last thing I'm going to show you, I promise, and then we'll have some time to digest, is the standards report. So when we click on the standards report, this is going to show you, let me just zoom out a little bit, what curriculum standards were highlighted in the problem set that was assigned, how many questions were aligned to that skill, and how the student performed on that skill. This way you can look and see if you're a standards-based grader or you're just tracking standards completion with your students. You can see what students did not master each one of the standards or which ones did master the standards. So again, that's the standards view. And then over here is the individual problem view. All right, a lot of information. Let's do a quick recap and then I'll let you play. So the assignment report starts off with the title, of course, the student progress cards, the performance summary, which gives you at a glance a view of which students got the problems right the first try, correct eventually, or incorrect and had to press show answer. And then student details down here at the bottom. The student progress cards just give you an indicator of where each student is on the assignment. Performance summary is those bar graphs showing the summary of student performance. The detailed report gives you the breakdown of how students performed on each individual question. And one thing that I forgot to show you, what's right here at the triple dot, is delete progress. So if a student did not perform well, and perhaps you did some reteaching and want to give them another opportunity to show mastery, when you click on the triple dot next to the student's name, you'll see the option to delete student progress, which will wipe out all their responses and give them another shot to do the assignment. The scoring key is always available right here next to the letter I, and that'll tell you what the different colors, what the different symbols mean when you're reading that details report. The problem level detail, let me go back there because I knew I was going to forget one thing. If you click on any of these blue problem titles right here, a window will open on the right showing you the problem that you assigned, any aligned standards. If I scroll down, here's your answer key. So you'll see the correct answers that were accepted, and then another breakdown of the problem. You can expand this if you want to present this to students and discuss the problem. And you can also scroll through the problems that you assigned with the previous or next button. Sorry about that, guys. I always forget at least one thing. And then we talked about the student details report, which is accessible by clicking on the student's name. This gives you the play-by-play, the answer for each attempt, how much time they spent per problem. And this is one other place that you can score open response if you want to do it on a student by student level instead. We talked about scoring and feedback for open response. Just to note that if you choose not to score open response, that will not affect the student's score here. So even though this is not scored, student still has 100% right here. If you do choose to score on that 4-point scale, that will factor into the student's score over here and next to their name. All right, and the standards report, the standards are represented for every standard that's included in that problem set, number of problems aligned to that standard, and their average score. All right, so right now, Carrie is going to share a link in the chat. What I would like you to do is just take a couple minutes and play around and familiarize yourself with this report. Carrie, do you have, there it is. So let me just go ahead and show you a couple things. This is kind of neat. Carrie is a wizard at whatever she does here. And so when you start up here, anything that's circled with a blue circle is a little bit interactive. So if you're just playing around, you want to view the standards report, that'll pop you over to a new page so you can kind of see how it works, since we can't get you into a live report without having you logged into your account. So again, I'm just going to give you a couple minutes to kind of view this, play around with it, and then we're going to do a little quiz just to make sure you know where everything is and you're feeling comfortable when you leave us today. So I'm going to set my timer right now. Feel free to pop any questions in the chat as you're looking around, and then we'll have our little quiz. All right, we'll give another minute. Again, if you have any questions at all, please feel free to post those in the chat. All right, so hopefully you had enough time to play around with that report. So like I promised, we're going to do a short little quiz now. Carrie, we just had one person pop in, so would you mind sharing that link one more time as we do our little quiz?
Yes.
So we do have a small group tonight, so we would appreciate sharing in the chat. Hopefully everything that you're going to answer is super easy for you to find. And really the intent is that you leave feeling really comfortable finding some of the key elements of the report today. So everyone should have their report open for the assignment report, and let's get started. So I would like to challenge you to find on the report, what is the average score on the assignment? And I'd love to follow up and kind of highlight this and show everyone where to find it, just so you are feeling good when you leave. So in the chat, please share on the assignment report Carrie sent over, what is the average score for that assignment? And Carrie, feel free to share as answers are coming in, because I know we get a bright group here. All right, and I'll go ahead and get us started with this one. Just make sure everyone's feeling comfortable. There we go.
I see an answer in the chat.
There we go, Carrie. What you got?
60%.
60%. Excellent. And you are 100% right. It feels good to have nice, easy questions. And just to highlight this, we're finding that percent right up here on the details report in the left-hand corner. Let me see if I can zoom in a little bit just so everyone can see a little bit clearer. I don't think it's going to let me, but right up here in the top row, that's going to give you the average score, letting you know how the class did at a glance. All right. Again, in the chat, which individual problem had the lowest average score? So reference back to that report. Which individual problem had the lowest average score? And Carrie, again, feel free to share any of these answers as they come in.
I'm seeing P3.
All right.
Also could be.
All right, let's take a look. All right, problem 2, part A. So let's go back and just see where this is. So when I'm looking at the report, and excuse me, I'll just go to this bigger one because that one's showing up super small. Each one of these is the problem. So we had problem 1, part A, part B, problem 2, part A, part B, and then problem 3. So if I go back over here, I can see that problem 2, part A, which was the third problem, but it's actually the second problem, first part, had a 50%. So just want to clarify that, that each one of these does give a problem. And if you're not sure what problem 1, part A or part B is, when you click on that blue title, it will open up on the sides just so you can review.
I do think that is something to highlight too, is like each part of the problem becomes a column. So if you assign a problem with 2 parts, there's 2 separate columns.
Yeah, exactly. So a lot of them, just an example of that, a lot of those are solve a problem, and then part B might be show your work, explain your answer. But yeah, you'll be able to see if there's multi-part questions during the assigning process too. Thanks for pointing that out, Carrie. All right, let's check out the next question. How many students started but have not finished the assignment? How many students started but have not finished the assignment? Just give about 20 seconds or so.
I have 1 did not complete the assignment.
All right, a couple more seconds. All right, let's check it out. 1 is correct. So just to highlight way up at the top, these progress cards that you see at the top of the report, 1 has not started, 1 is in progress, and then 9 have completed. Excellent. Something you want to check right at the beginning to make sure you're reviewing your work with the right audience of students, right? If no one started it, you definitely don't want to review it maybe. All right. For problem 1, part A, on what attempt did student 3 arrive at the correct answer? For problem 1, part A, on what attempt did student 3 arrive at the correct answer? And there's 2 places you could find this that I'll recap both with you. All right, about 5 more seconds, and then we'll go and see how we're going to find that. All right, someone's taken a guess first attempt. So let's see. It's actually on the second attempt. So let's take a look. So question, what did I say? Question 1, part A. So if we look down to student 3, we can see that that is an orange score ticket. If ever you're wondering or need to remind yourself what that means, when we click on the I next to the word scoring, that's going to pop open. So when I see the orange, that means they got it correct eventually. They had 1 incorrect response, and then they got it correct. The other place that you could look, just as a reminder, is on the student details report. So when I click on student 3, I'm going to be able to see for question 1, they got it wrong on the first try. I see this red row here. They answered 2 7s, and then they got it right on the second try. So again, 2 different places you can kind of dive into that level where you're seeing this, each one of the student responses to assess that. All right, couple more. How many questions from the problem set were aligned with the Common Core Standard 7 RP A2B on ratios and proportions?
I am seeing 2.
All right, we'll give about 5 more seconds for a couple others to have an opportunity. All right, and 2 is correct. And just as a reminder, we're finding that on the standards report. So when I look at the standards report, I can see any of the aligned standards in this problem set. And underneath that circle tells you the number of questions in that problem set that included that standard. All right. And last one, thank you everyone for participating in the chat. What were the correct answers to problem 1, part A? You know, you can find this information on the Open Up Resources website, but where would you find that in ASSISTments? Again, I'll give about 20 seconds or so to give you an opportunity to share in the chat. All right, so someone's telling me in the chat where to find it, and it is 0.4 or 3 7ths. And when we look at the performance summary, we can click right down here on the actual problem and view those correct answers. That's one of those places. The other place, and I'm actually going to show you this live because I don't think we have it in your view, but if you actually click on any of the score chips here, you'll also be able to see the correct answers there. All right, definitely don't have to memorize the answer key for all the problems you assign to students. So thank you, everyone. That was a great job. Thank you for those who participated in the chat. Hopefully, just those key elements you're feeling a little bit more comfortable finding. And As we move into our next section where we're going to talk about scenarios, I just want you to think about some getting started suggestions. So we talked about a lot of these key data points that you can focus on. You might start just by looking at the class average when you review data with your students, where you can quickly assess whole class understanding on the assignments. There was times that I would look at that class average and see a 25% and think, geez, I need to do some reteaching here before I move on with my content. So that's one place that you could start. The individual problem average, which you'll see in each one of the columns, identifies which individual problems are going to need whole class review, allowing you to use your homework review time or your independent practice review time a lot more efficiently. You might start your lesson talking about the common wrong answer, which could help to facilitate whole class discussions about common misconceptions. You might also use a my favorite no activity, something that Carrie and I have used before with our classes, to help celebrate what students do correctly and then guide them into away from what they might be doing wrong. And then lastly, just a suggestion, you might start by using the individual student score, either by problem or by standard, to ID students who are going to need some reteaching and small group review. All right, so we're actually going to skip through this because we have an awfully small group today. But again, please feel free to put any questions that you have in the chat as we continue. All right, so now we get to talk about step 4. The teacher and students use the data to take action and think about next steps. So Catherine is now confident that she can effectively and efficiently analyze ASSISTments data. So now she wants to use the data to inform instruction and discuss the data with her students, which for some teachers seems intimidating to discuss the data with the students. But we actually have a short video, just a minute or two long, that I want to show you from a star ASSISTments teacher and how her routine changed when she started using ASSISTments. So I will mute myself and share this now. Oh, sorry about that. Let's try that again.
I'm Kim Kelly. I'm a 7th grade math teacher at Skyview Middle School. I feel like homework is a very important instructional practice, but it's very frustrating trying to figure out how to collect it, how to assess it, how to provide that feedback to the students. Before ASSISTments, I would actually start class with get out your homework and let's check it. And we wouldn't even start any math until 10 minutes into class.
Here's what I need for you to do. You're going to get out your homework from yesterday and you are going to check your answers. Where's your homework? You don't have it, okay? Are you done checking? Boys, are you done checking? Okay, does anyone have any questions? Any of them that you want me to go over with you? 161 centimeters. How'd we do? Feel pretty good about them?
With ASSISTments, my homework procedures can be far more efficient. I can dive right into the common misconceptions, where the errors are. I know where we're struggling better than they do.
68% class average. This is the question we just looked at. The other question that was not so hot, 43% correct.
The burden of finding the starting point is off of me, it's off of the students. We can rely on the data to help us identify the starting points for our discussion. I can launch my class with a common wrong answer or a problem where I identified a weakness. Every step of my lesson is driven in a meaningful way.
Is this line right here part of the perimeter? Yeah, so we need to fill it in and add them. That one too. That was first common mistake, forgetting to add in those two sides.
It benefits the students, but just as much it benefits the teachers. I'm able to identify the common misconceptions, which allows me to steer my instruction quickly to support my student learning.
And there's my correct answer, okay? So most of us were pretty close. Just a couple little common misconceptions that we were able to fix. Good?
Once you start using ASSISTments, students have immediate feedback, so they're learning while they're doing their homework. And then as the teacher using that data to drive the homework review process, you spend so much less time going over the homework that the bulk of your classroom time now can be spent on the new instruction. Plus, all of the students are invested. The conversation is around common misconceptions. It doesn't matter if they completed their homework or they don't have it with them, they can participate in the class. There are so many different options available, but I want to be sure that what I'm investing my time in is research-based and proven to improve student instruction. And I can see with my own students a difference in their learning. It has actually changed my class.
All right, thanks for watching that with me, guys. I feel like that classroom is basically like my classroom, and Carrie can probably echo the same thing. So yeah, it definitely changed my classroom. You can see it change Kim Kelly's classroom. And when I think about that video, I just remember the days when I would say, put your hand up if you need help on question 1 and question 2, and crickets out in the student audience. So something to think about as we finish up today. So the next part of our of the webinar, we're going to talk about a few different scenarios of using Open Up, different types of elements of the Open Up curriculum in your classroom, what a snapshot of data looks like, and then what actionable steps you could take with that data. So we're going to start with this first scenario. So after teaching 8th grade, Unit 3, Lesson 1 on understanding proportional relationships, Catherine assigned a cool down, one of the entry points that you might decide to use. That evening, she reviewed the resulting assignment report to help plan for the next day. So I'm just going to give you about 10 or 15 seconds just to take a look at the data, and then we're going to kind of pull it apart and think about how we could use this. All right. So for this first one, I'm going to do a think aloud of what I notice, what I wonder, and what we could do. And for the next one, we're going to do a poll. So for this snapshot of data, one thing I notice is this pink, 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 pink. Remember that the pink means students had to press show answer. I also noticed that they spent a total of 33 seconds on the assignment, whereas the other students, we have 7 minutes and then 1 minute and 55, but that one has a much higher score. A conclusion I can draw from this with my teacher hat on is that this student either needs a lot more support mastering proportional relationships, or the nice way we say it at ASSISTments is that they gamed the assignment by pressing show answer without actually making thoughtful attempts. You might have a different way to describe that student in your classroom. So some next steps that we could take to figure out if this student was honestly struggling or whether they were gaming the system is to pull up that student details report. This is going to give you the play-by-play for that student. And you can actually review this data with the student in a one-on-one conference. I always like sharing data with students because half the time they say, "Ooh, you can see what I did?" And we say, absolutely. And sometimes that comment by itself will help to resolve any problems. In this report, given that the students spent very little time, 3 seconds, 1 second, as they were getting their hints and then asked for the answer, they clearly did not make their best effort on this assignment. So we would recommend meeting with that student, reteaching, giving them what they need to show success, and then delete progress and have them try again. Just a reminder on the report, to view student details report, first we're going to unhide the student names and then click on the student's name, and that will open the student details report. And if you are looking to delete progress, you're clicking on the triple dot next to the student name, and that will wipe out any student responses, allowing them another opportunity to show mastery. All right, scenario number 2. So for independent practice, Catherine assigned 5 practice problems on finding the slope of a line from Open Up 8th grade, Unit 3, Lesson 10, Calculating Slope. So if you're an 8th grade teacher in the group right now, that may seem familiar to you. She wants to quickly assess whole class understanding in the moment so she can efficiently review concepts the next day. So here's a snapshot of data. Again, we're going to give you a little bit of time to look at this, and we're actually going to launch a poll to to gauge your thinking as you look at this data. All right. So we are going to launch a poll, and what we want you to answer in the poll is we want you to choose the correct noticing for the data and the correct conclusion that you can draw from this data. So let me go ahead and see if I can launch the poll. Carrie, could you go ahead and launch the poll? It shows up behind something on my screen. Carrie, were you able to launch that poll? I can't see it actually.
Oh, yes, I did.
Great. Thank you.
Question
All right.
number 1. Yeah.
So we'll give you about 60 seconds. Please go ahead and read those responses and choose a noticing and a wondering.
All right, we got all responses. So I'm going to go ahead and end the poll and share the results. Everyone said most students scored poorly on 2 questions.
All right, and that is absolutely accurate. When we look at problem 4 and problem 5, we're seeing 22% and 11%. And depending on what your mastery threshold is, 73 may be something you want to review. 96 and 100 look a-okay. You definitely don't have to use your class time to review those. All right, and for the second question, Carrie?
I'm going to go ahead and launch it right now. This is specifically looking at question number 4, problem number 4. So what can you conclude about the common wrong answer for problem number 4?
This one sometimes is a little tricky. All right, we'll do another 15 seconds or so. Thank you for anyone taking the poll. Again, we got a small group, so we'd love to hear from you. All right, Carrie, you want to share out what we have in the poll?
Yes, this one was a tricky. It was 67% entered the wrong answer 1/3.
67%. So I always get mixed up on this one because it is a little bit of a tongue twister, but correct. So 67% is the percent of the student incorrect responses, and 1/3 was the answer that they gave. So did I say that right, Carrie? Oh, you know what? I think I think the mistake is I put the wrong percentage in. But yeah, so 1/3 is the incorrect answer, and 67% of the incorrect responses gave 1/3 as their answer. All right, it's a little bit of a tongue twister when we talk about that, but one way to look at it is if you look at the 100% over here of students who got it wrong said the answer was -3. So that one might have been a better example for our poll today. But again, thank you for participating. So some next steps you could take if you find either a couple problems that scored very low, or if you have common wrong answers that are displayed on your report, is before you move on to the next lesson, you definitely want to review those low scoring problems with students, paying particular attention to any common wrong answers that happened. I'll tell you from my experience, I could anticipate most of the common wrong answers before I even saw them on the report. But sometimes they surprise you, and it really gives you an opportunity to clear up things that you didn't even anticipate. You could then assign additional standards aligned questions on that, or to reassess and give students more practice on that particular topic. All right, in our last scenario, we're going to ask you to share a little bit of thinking in the chat, so just get ready. So Catherine also teaches a section of Algebra 2. Maybe you are spread thin across different grade levels. Catherine definitely is. After teaching her lesson, she assigned a Ready, Set, Go problem from the new Open Up High School Algebra 1, Unit 2, Lesson 7 on radical ideas. So this lesson reviews specific exponent skills, and she wants to see if her students have mastered the concepts. Her mastery threshold for this assignment is 70%. So I'm going to give you a couple minutes to take a look at this snapshot of data. And just to note that on the report, you can sort the data by student score. So I would love to hear from you in the chat. What is a noticing that you have about this snapshot of data? And what are some conclusions that you can draw? And we'll give about 60 seconds or so for you to share in the chat. All right, Carrie, anything coming in the chat?
I'm seeing I got a private chat about like the idea of like half the class didn't do well.
Absolutely. Great. And I do want to show you, because I didn't show you that here, so that you can sort the student scores. So if you are looking to see if students did not meet your mastery threshold, didn't start, that can be done just by clicking right next to the average score. So absolutely. One noticing, 50% of the students received scores below that 70% threshold on the problem set. A conclusion that you could draw based on this data is that that subgroup of 4 students need more support to master the standard properties of exponents. You definitely don't want to move on if there's specific standards that students need in order to be successful on the next unit. So, any thoughts? What next steps could you take to respond to this data? What would you do if you noticed right away that students have not met mastery? Again, we'd love to hear from you in the chat. And Carrie, feel free to share out if anything's coming in.
I got reteaching those specific students and then reassessing.
Yeah, that sounds great. And I mean, every teacher is going to use this data in whatever way makes sense most to their students. But absolutely, once you highlight the students who need more support, you could put them in math centers, you could pull them aside, you might have a remediation block in your schedule to help those students. But the point is, those are the students that need a little bit more support. Once you reteach, you can reassess in whatever way makes most sense to your classroom. You could delete progress and allow them to try that same problem set to demonstrate mastery. You could curate your own custom problem sets aligned with that skill and give them a new problem set, 2-3 questions to see if they've mastered that standard. Or you could just, the old-fashioned way, sit down with them as you're reteaching and see if they've demonstrated mastery as you're giving them that practice. So having the data is what we're supplying you with. What you do with the data, we can make recommendations, but you're the teacher and you're going to drive what you do in your classroom. Some recommendations for use, just to get you started, is we do recommend that you use the assignment report data to guide your instruction at least 75% of the time. And when we say use it to guide instruction, we also encourage you to use it with the students. I know that I would share that data with students every day to show them successes, to show them where there was misconceptions, and they knew it to be part of our routine. Let's see here. So, like Carrie mentioned earlier, that students who know how they're doing and knowing that the work that they're doing is driving what their teacher does is going to give them a higher buy-in for doing their work online and completing their assignments. All right, so I'm not seeing any questions, and I do want to start the wrap up now so I can be respectful of everyone's time. Please post any questions that you have in the chat as we do our wrap up. So today we really talked about a review of step 1 and 2, but step 3, how to access and then analyze the data report. And then step 4, using that data to inform instruction. Carrie's going to post a link in the chat, and this is a link for a feedback survey. It should only take you about 1 minute. And since we give all of our webinars for free and our platform is free for teachers as well, your feedback on our free programming is super helpful to make sure that we are meeting the needs of our teachers. Please make sure to choose October 5th, and the webinar title is New User Webinar Part 2 for Open Up Teachers. We do have some upcoming webinars that may be of interest to you. One topic that we didn't really cover a lot in these 2 sessions is skill builders. Skill builders are mastery-based, skill-aligned practice sets that are built in-house at ASSISTments. And it's a great tool to give students extra practice as much as they need. So we have a 30-minute session coming up on October 21st at 5 p.m. Eastern Time. And then we have our first targeted webinar of the year. Our targeted webinar is going to feature teacher voices who are using ASSISTments in their classroom, and it's going to focus on using ASSISTments to address unfinished learning. So if that's a topic that speaks to you, if you're having struggles with that in your classroom, please join us on the 26th at the end of the month, and you'll hear from ASSISTments teacher users who have some recommendations on how to address this. On our website, we have some great resources. I just want to highlight a couple before we close out today. One is our Help Center. Here you'll find user resources, which has some student-facing videos and practice here. You'll see some teacher-facing getting started and finding and assigning content. Here you'll find our webinar library. So if you're looking for a recording of one of our free programming, you'll find that right in here, in addition to our FAQ. Another place that I love to steer teachers on our website is the Teacher Corner. In the Teacher Corner, we have artifacts. You'll see I have one right here for my favorite no, but we have a library of different artifacts that ASSISTments teachers have created that will highlight different ways to use ASSISTments in your classroom with certain curriculums or across curriculums. These include printables, these include videos, just different ways to use ASSISTments and meet the needs of your students. So I definitely recommend viewing the Teacher Corner whenever you have some time. We'd love to see you in our Facebook user community where you can ask questions, share ideas. Carrie, if you have that, there it is. She's posting that in the chat. So if you're a Facebook user, please join our community. We're also on Twitter, YouTube, and LinkedIn. And any questions you have about getting started, about things that you run into, please email us at contact@assistments.org. Carrie and I are half the team over on the other end there, and we're happy to help you get started, troubleshoot any issues, or do whatever we can to support you. If you have any questions for the team at Open Up Resources, I'll leave these here. OpenUpResources.org is their website, which you're probably very familiar with. You can follow them on social. And if you have any questions about using that curriculum in your classroom, you can email Dana Cartier at Open Up Resources. And again, you'll have access to all these links when I send the slide deck to you tomorrow morning. All right, so just to make sure we're wrapping up on time today, I think we'll get out 2 minutes early. Again, please email us at contact@assistments.org if anything comes up. Thank you so much for joining us on this Tuesday afternoon or evening, depending on where you're calling in from today. Everyone's going to receive that recording and slide deck tomorrow morning, so you can expect that. And please stay in touch and let us know how we can best help you. And I wish everyone a great rest of your day. And we'll get off about 2 minutes early.